But you know, for some farmers, they can't afford to beat the system, so now it's crossed the road and it's going up the ridge lines on the other side of the road. And then once it gets to those ridge lines, then it ferries in all the stuff around it. See up there, up the back. So people just can't afford to deal with the material as it's been dumped on their property by the government getting away with this stuff. How does a forestry plantation group get away with having such massive infestations of lantana around all of the trees? So within this, I'm trying to capture exactly how bad this criminal activity of the Premier is on these lands. You have a look at the black or the dead areas on the vegetation up there, and many homes are directly above these dead dieback areas. And you look at the scale of this around every single ridge line that you can see, and you start to understand right up to the very top of the ridgeline up there, and in mosaics all the way through it. This is the level of dieback that lantana's causing, and they've known about this for 30 years. This is how bad this has become now. So the fires, when they do come, and they will come, are going to be completely unstoppable within those areas. And that's why the criminal activities of the Premier and the state government and the councils is even more important, because circumventing environmental law is a massive issue, and it is a criminal act on a scale that has to be seen to be believed, because when those areas burn out, they burn with such intensity that they take all of the green, healthy trees with them and complete ridge lines, as in North Queensland, complete rainforests. We lost 2 rainforests last month, which is record-breaking history in Australia, and not a word's being said about it by the Greens or anybody else. Why haven't the Greens said anything about lantana, given that lantana is spreading at 12 to 15 times the cleared lands, and it's far more devastating for the ecology than the clearing of the lands, because the fires that come after the lantana, plus also there is nothing lives in or under lantana in stage 2 and stage 3 infestations. Then why have they never said a word about it? They've known about it for decades. They've known that water travels lantana for a very long time now, and nothing's been done. But anyway, we'll take a few snaps and see how they turn out as well. Catch you soon on the next one, in the next spot, as there's a lot to do today. Families live at the end of this road, and this is the only way in and out of this land, and this is what these people face. And last year was when the Rural Fire Brigade gave a letter to the public, and a minister was contacted to say if a fire started down here in the wrong spot on this road, the Rural Fire Brigade would not be attending to the people at the end of the street. This is what the government, this is what your Premier is trying to destroy the evidence of. This ecological disaster is an environmental disaster that's illegal for it to have actually happened, and yet your Premier and the Prime Minister's done nothing about this in the last 18 months. Comes right down to one lane access between this stuff here. So when this goes bad, what is the chance for these people in this environment? And all of these seeds have been propagated directly into the watercourse here for decades. How did this happen? This is illegal for this to happen, and why haven't the Greens said a word about this? Why aren't the climate change people saying something about this? This is biodiversity decimation at a scale that you cannot believe. Nothing lives in or under this material. So this is complete devastation. And when they light the fires up, none of the animals can escape because there's no real thoroughfares or paths to get out of it. It just is staggering that this has never been forcibly cleaned up. Your Premier has allowed this to continue all of this time, killing all of these hardwood trees. Look at the amount of dead trees, and some standing, some down, all to add to the fuel load when the fires come through these areas. Which is what they plan to do when they plan to burn off with one decent thunderstorm. They plan to go at it. They are never going to control this fire when they light this fire. The volume of material here is staggering. But you know, that might be poetic justice when the Premier lights the fire and it takes off and it decimates all of these lands, and these properties and families die as a result of her gross negligence in this. This is a place that's never going to be cleaned up because the other side of the road is where the public can actually see it. Over this side of the road, nobody gets to see this devastation. So they're not keen to clean anything up down this way. One thunderstorm and they reckon they're going to have at this stuff and light it up. The devastation up. Look at these trees. When you look at these trees and they get so sparsely leaved, the amount of dead trees that follow in the next 6 to 12 months is staggering. All because of the Lantana. The density of this here is as far as you can see up that hillside past this lot when you get a view looking up there. It's like that all the way up that mountainside, all the way from that creek all the way up. one of those strange things when you really look at it, of how the Premier has allowed this material to grow on National Parks lands for 4 years that she's been made aware of it illegally, to the extent that it is. And this is only one tiny little section of this issue, but you look at it and nothing at all has been attempted in 4 years. But I've gotten so serious now about the attention that I'm drawing to it, and the fact that the Greens can't actually identify Lantana. And I mean the greenies as in the people, the greenies, and the greenies as in the green government. You know, when you look at the level of Lantana growing on their lands, it's staggering, and it needs to be dealt with, that's for sure. Needs to be dealt with, that's for sure. But how can criminals in national parks get away with this? You know, the Premier says that it's not her problem, it's not her fault, you know. You look at the level of it, it's just mind-blowing. All growing on government land, on the, what's the names there? Like, you look at it.
Yeah, mate, everything all right?
Good. Yeah, mate, just filming the Lantana. They reckon they're going to burn this out.
Good on them. I don't think they will, though.
I went to that meeting up there at Mount Glorious the other week, and they said they're going to burn out Northbrook and all through.
Well, they were putting firebombs in here before, 2 months ago. They
Right.
burned all in here.
Right.
But not probably about 2k in.
Yep.
So that should have been around Mount Glorious where they were burning. That's where they were actually reigniting it.
Right.
But it's pretty, if it gets away in here,
Yeah.
in these conditions, I don't think they'll be burning soon.
Well, you know what they said? This is what got my goat and why I got... Well, hello everybody. I'm Gary. I'm Lantana Removal Queensland, 40 years of experience, and the only person in Australia that permanently eradicates Lantana for the last 40 years. So basically here I am out towards Sanford Way. Wanted to take you on a little drive because they're going to burn a lot of country very soon, and they're going to destroy a lot of country. So the Premier's entered into a new system with a consortium to brainwash the public. So we're going to have a look at exactly what that envisages. Just to give you a little look around, so you have a look at the Lantana growing on these embankments and hillsides and all through these areas. But what I wanted to show you is the ridge lines and the dieback in the Australian forestry because of the Lantana. So this is a park, this is a reserve, a typical reserve in Queensland, run by councils illegally allowing Lantana to grow there and allowing every other state government entity to grow their Lantana illegally. So when you look at the way they poison this material, you start to see exactly how they create such a wick. So if anybody accidentally throws a match or throws a cigarette butt out, it then ignites this stuff and off it goes. You look at the age of some of these plants here, it's incredible that this criminal activity of your Premier has been going on for so many decades, and it's been willfully allowed to happen. You look down in that watercourse down there and it's completely swallowed by Lantana and all sorts of other vines growing in those materials illegally. But what I'm wanting to show you is the dead trees throughout the ridge lines and up the ridges of these lands. You can see massive clumps of trees, enormous clumps that I said 12 months ago was the indicator of the level of this dieback. So when we went to this brainwashing function of QFS and Rural Fire Brigade and Moreton Bay Regional Council, who's one of the biggest criminals in Australia, next to Brisbane City Council, it's even worse, which the Premier states that these entities were calling Lantana low risk. She never called it low risk, it was them. So it's an interesting thing that she defines that, because the criminal activities of allowing it to grow under the Biosecurity Act 2014 is criminal. It's illegal. It's illegal to release it into the environment, and it's illegal to allow it to propagate downstream and off your property onto somebody else's property. So it's a major, major issue as it stands, and it's causing incredible damage to the environment illegally, which they've known about for decades. But once criminal activities get to that sort of level, nobody really stands up to them, and nobody really bothers to do anything about it, which is interesting, because you've got all of the agencies that are responsible for the protection of the environment. Okay, that battery doesn't fit. So that's what we face when we're looking around in these areas, trying to protect the environment. But the Premier is quite proud of that scenario, that she's been accused of certain things, and she's in good because other premiers have been accused of many wrong dealings. But circumventing environmental law to this level has catastrophic events for people trying to live their lives in these areas. They bought their homes in these areas in good faith that they would be protected and they would have safe passage to and from their homes. But at that brainwashing meeting of the fire management side of things, they were saying if you get killed up there because you didn't leave, then that's your problem. You chose to live in that environment, that's your problem. But they didn't tell you that when you bought the environment. And then they filled it full of lantana illegally. So, you know, there's a lot there that hopefully when the deaths start, the criminal charges against premiers and prime ministers for not taking action will actually take place, and we'll see people put in jail for the deaths of children and their parents and grandparents and all the different walks of life. Because at the end of the day, that's pretty much where that side of it, you know, plays out. All of the roads are completely choked with lantana, so when the fires do happen up in these types of terrains, there's very little chance that people are going to get out of these environments just because of the sheer volume of material growing down these roads. And they were very upset because I took it to them at their meeting, because they didn't actually want to discuss any facts related to the criminal activities of TMR and main roads, which is TMR is main roads, but they didn't want to discuss that. In fact, they said that TMR is finally doing an audit on those materials. Now that's 4 years after I took it to these people, that they're finally doing an audit on those materials. So it's incredible to see just how corrupt the system is. We'll try and get some pictures of this and see if we can show this in still photos, because that's one of the things that you have a problem with. But you look at the level of lantana down through this watercourse. It's absolutely staggering. And the age of the plants, and it's always been illegal. Always been illegal for that to grow and to be released into the environment. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next spot.